The story begins with Clara stepping off the train into a small, snow-blanketed town, her breath visible in the crisp winter air. She clutches a small, worn trunk close to her chest, the leather strap cutting slightly into her hand, yet she barely notices. Everything around her, the low wooden station, the distant chimneys of the town, the muffled sounds of horses and sleigh bells, is unfamiliar. For a moment the world feels immense and intimidating, and Clara feels the weight of every mile she has traveled, every uncertainty she has faced, and every hope she carries with her. She is far from the home she knew, a place of modest comfort and family love, but she is filled with a fragile optimism, the kind that comes when a person has nothing but hope to guide them. The winter landscape mirrors her inner state, both beautiful and daunting, stark yet full of possibility. Snow crunches under her boots as she scans the station platform, searching for the man she has never met in person, but who is supposed to become her future, Jonathan, the rancher who ordered her through a mail-order arrangement. Clara's emotions are a complicated mix of excitement, anxiety, and fear. She wonders if he will be kind, if he will accept her, or if she will regret leaving everything she has ever known. These thoughts swirl in her mind, competing with the cold that nips at her cheeks and fingers. Jonathan arrives quietly, his figure silhouetted against the snowy horizon. He is a man of sturdy build, with a demeanor both calm and reserved. There is an air of quiet authority in the way he moves, but Clara notices the gentleness in his eyes as he approaches. Their first meeting is awkward. Jonathan holds out a gloved hand in greeting, and Clara hesitates before taking it, feeling both relief and nervousness at the human connection. Words are sparse at first. Jonathan's speech is careful, measured, and polite, yet it carries an unfamiliar accent of the harshness and simplicity of ranch life. Clara responds with a polite smile and curt answers, unsure how much of herself to reveal. The tension in their first encounter is not only from unfamiliarity, but also from the invisible weight of expectation. They both know this meeting is the beginning of a life-altering commitment, yet neither knows how the other will fit into it. As they move toward Jonathan's horse-drawn sleigh, the scene emphasizes Clara's vulnerability and the stark contrasts of her new life. The town, though quiet, is alive with subtle movement, people hurrying along snow-covered paths, horses stamping impatiently, smoke curling from chimneys, but she feels entirely isolated. Every sense is heightened. The cold that bites at her fingertips, the unfamiliar scent of hay and wood smoke, and the uneven rhythm of the sleigh as it jolts along the snowy road. Clara notices the way Jonathan handles the horses with confidence and ease, a silent indication of the life that awaits her, one of hard work, discipline, and resilience. During the ride, Clara reflects on her journey, leaving her family and friends behind, the letters she wrote and received, the dreams that led her to this moment. She is aware of the gamble she has taken, trusting that Jonathan's heart will match the promise in his letters. Her thoughts are interrupted occasionally by Jonathan's quiet remarks about the landscape or the weather, brief but meaningful gestures of connection. Despite her apprehension, Clara feels a flicker of reassurance. He has arrived to meet her, he is real, and perhaps, just perhaps, this journey will lead her to a life she can truly call her own. By the time they reach the ranch, the first stage of Clara's journey, leaving the familiar behind and stepping into the unknown, is complete. Closes with a sense of anticipation and trepidation, setting the tone for a story about hope, resilience, and the slow, tender forging of trust between two people who start as strangers in a snow-covered world. Clara's first steps onto the ranch are both awe-inspiring and intimidating. The vast expanse of snow-covered fields stretches endlessly, broken only by the sturdy silhouette of the ranch house and the occasional outline of barns and stables. The wind carries a biting chill that seems to seep through her coat, but she presses on, determined not to show her fear. For the first time since leaving home, Clara truly understands the isolation of this new life. There are no neighbors passing by, no bustling streets, just the open sky, the crunch of snow beneath her boots, and the rhythmic clatter of horses in the barn. The sheer scale of the land is overwhelming, and she wonders if she has the strength, physically or emotionally, to adjust to this new reality. Jonathan, ever silent yet observant, leads her inside the ranch house. The home is modest and functional, with heavy wooden beams and a hearth that promises warmth, but it feels unfamiliar and stark to Clara. She notes the practicality of everything: shelves lined with jars of preserves, neatly stacked firewood, and simple furnishings that speak to a life of work rather than luxury. There is no flourish, no unnecessary decoration, just the tools and spaces required to survive and manage the ranch. Clara can't help but feel small, like an intruder in this well-ordered world, yet part of her admires the discipline and care evident in every detail. The first days are a whirlwind of learning, exhaustion, and quiet observation. Clara is tasked with chores, feeding the animals, tending to the kitchen, learning the rhythm of a household that runs on routine rather than convenience. The physical labor is grueling. Muscles ache in places she didn't know could ache, and the cold seems relentless. She falters at times, spilling feed, misplacing tools, or underestimating the strength required for even simple tasks. Yet Jonathan watches silently, offering corrections without criticism, his presence both intimidating and oddly comforting. He is patient in a quiet, unspoken way, never hovering, but always ensuring that she is safe and learning. As Clara navigates this new life, she experiences a swirl of emotions. There is fear of failure, of disappointing Jonathan, of making mistakes that will mark her as unworthy. But alongside the fear is hope. Hope that she can belong, that her efforts will be seen and appreciated, and that this strange man who brought her here might eventually see her as more than a helper. She begins to write letters home, pouring her thoughts and fears onto paper, describing the snow, the work, and her impressions of Jonathan. These letters are a lifeline, a way to process the enormity of the change in her life, and a reminder that she has a part of the old world still with her. Jonathan, for his part, struggles to communicate beyond the practical. His kindness is evident in the small things, making sure the fire is warm before she goes to bed, bringing her extra blankets, or quietly assisting with chores, but he rarely speaks of feelings. Clara senses a distance, a wall built from years of solitude and self-reliance, and this creates a tension she cannot yet bridge. She wants to connect, to show her gratitude and her emerging affection, but words fail her. And yet, in his silent support and watchful gaze, Clara feels the faintest flicker of reassurance. He is not indifferent. He notices her efforts, her resilience, and perhaps even her courage. As the days pass, Clara begins to adapt. She learns the rhythm of life on the ranch, the cadence of feeding animals, chopping wood, and preparing meals. She discovers the quiet beauty of the snow-covered landscape at dawn, the subtle warmth of the hearth, and the satisfaction of contributing to a household that relies on her efforts. Slowly, the ranch stops feeling like a foreign prison and begins to feel like a place where she might belong. By the end of Part 2, Clara is no longer just a visitor or an outsider. She is a participant in a life that challenges her, strengthens her, and begins to transform her hope into quiet determination. As Clara settles into the rhythm of ranch life, the initial novelty begins to wear off, and the reality of her situation settles in. The physical labor, the isolation, and the lack of familiar comforts weigh heavily on her, and small irritations start to surface. She discovers that working alongside Jonathan is not as simple as following instructions. His expectations are high, and his manner, though not harsh, is often abrupt and unyielding. For Clara, every mistake feels amplified. Spilling a bucket of feed, misjudging the weight of a sack of flour, or misunderstanding a task leaves her flustered and self-conscious. She begins to question whether she truly belongs here or if she has overestimated her ability to adapt. Jonathan, meanwhile, notices her struggles but approaches them in his usual reserved way. He corrects mistakes silently or with brief, clipped instructions, expecting Clara to learn quickly. His stoicism and lack of verbal reassurance, which were initially interpreted as quiet kindness, now feel like indifference or judgment. There is tension in their interactions, a growing undercurrent of frustration, both subtle and unavoidable. Clara, inexperienced in the ways of ranch life and the emotional reticence of a man hardened by solitude, misreads his silence as criticism. Jonathan, in turn, struggles to articulate encouragement, believing that actions speak louder than words. The clash of expectations becomes evident during a day of chores that should be routine. Clara attempts to feed the livestock while managing multiple tasks, only to have Jonathan step in and correct her methods. Though his intentions are practical, the delivery feels abrupt to her. Clara feels belittled, while Jonathan is frustrated by her hesitation and the mistakes she continues to make. Their first argument emerges from this tension. Words are exchanged that reveal their vulnerabilities. Clara expresses her fear of not being enough, of being seen merely as a hired hand rather than a partner. Jonathan, unaccustomed to emotional expression, responds defensively, highlighting the pressures of running the ranch and his desire for competence and reliability. Despite the conflict, there are subtle moments that suggest mutual respect beneath the tension. Jonathan notices Clara's perseverance and her determination to master each task, even if she struggles. Clara observes Jonathan's quiet acts of care, the way he ensures the animals are fed before she begins, the small adjustments he makes to ease her workload, and the protective vigilance he shows during the harsh winter weather. These gestures do not immediately erase the tension, but they plant the seeds of understanding and eventual trust. As days pass, the tension between them is further complicated by emotional undercurrents neither fully understands. Clara feels isolated and longs for reassurance, while Jonathan wrestles with his own discomfort around expressing warmth and vulnerability. Their miscommunications reflect deeper differences in upbringing, experience, and personality. She grew up in a world where emotional expression was nurtured. He grew up learning to hide vulnerability behind stoicism. This contrast fuels both conflict and the potential for growth, setting the stage for a relationship that will evolve through patience, empathy, and shared experience. Even in moments of strain, small victories occur. Clara begins to anticipate Jonathan's routines, learning to perform tasks more efficiently, and Jonathan begins to offer occasional encouragement, often in subtle ways rather than through overt words. The first tensions are crucial. They serve as the crucible in which their characters are tested and refined. The frustrations, misunderstandings, and emotional gaps highlight the work required for trust and intimacy, showing that love and partnership are built not through immediate perfection, but through resilience, compromise, and mutual recognition of effort. By the end the reader understands that Clara and Jonathan's relationship is far from easy. It is filled with the real challenges of two individuals learning to coexist under demanding circumstances. Yet even in their clashes, the story hints at an underlying potential. The tension is not a wall but a forge, shaping both Clara and Jonathan as they navigate the complexities of life work and the uncertain beginnings of affection in the remote snow-covered ranch. After the initial tensions of adapting to ranch life and navigating misunderstandings with Jonathan, Clara begins to notice subtle moments that hint at the man's quieter, more compassionate side. It starts one evening as the winter sun dips low over the snow-covered fields. Clara, exhausted from a day of chores, returns inside to find the hearth lit, and a small, modest decoration in the corner of the room, a tiny Christmas tree adorned with handmade ornaments of wood and scraps of fabric. The gesture is simple, almost imperceptible, yet it carries a depth of thoughtfulness that Clara hadn't expected. It's the first real glimpse she has of Jonathan's softer side, and it sparks a mixture of surprise and warmth within her. Jonathan notices Clara's reaction but does not comment on it. He quietly tends to the fire while she hesitates, unsure whether to speak. The silence is comfortable in a way that their earlier interactions were not. Clara realizes that his gestures, though understated and unspoken, convey care in a way words sometimes fail to. The Christmas tree, modest as it is, reflects Jonathan's attempt to bring a small spark of cheer and human connection into the stark reality of their lives. For Clara, it is a symbolic acknowledgement that he notices her presence, even if he struggles to express it directly. This moment begins a subtle shift in Clara's perception of him. She starts paying closer attention to the small details of his behavior, the way he checks on the animals quietly in the early morning, the careful way he prepares meals, and the protective attention he shows when she struggles with chores in the cold. These observations create a growing sense of reassurance. Jonathan may be reserved, but he is thoughtful, reliable, and considerate. The realization softens Clara's heart, and she begins to see the potential for warmth and companionship in a man she once thought unapproachable. For Jonathan, the tree and Clara's visible delight act as a mirror reflecting his own feelings. He has never been expressive with words, particularly when it comes to matters of the heart. Yet he recognizes in Clara's presence a vitality and courage that quietly move him. Though he does not verbalize it, his care for her deepens. In simple, practical ways, he begins to adjust, leaving a warm blanket by her bed, making small changes to chores to ease her workload, or offering subtle guidance when she struggles. Each act is deliberate and understated, a reflection of a man unpracticed in sentiment but sincere in intent. The snow outside creates a magical, almost ethereal backdrop, accentuating the intimacy of these moments. Clara finds herself lingering by the hearth, watching the glow of the fire flicker against Jonathan's silhouette. For the first time, the fear and anxiety that had accompanied her arrival begin to ease. The harshness of ranch life, the cold isolation, and the uncertainty of her new role are momentarily softened by the simple acknowledgement that someone sees her efforts and values her presence. The act of noticing, small as it may be, is transformative. This glimpse of warmth also serves as a turning point for Clara's own emotional journey. She starts to approach her tasks with renewed confidence, motivated not only by the necessity of survival, but also by a growing desire to connect with Jonathan on a deeper level. Her hope, once tentative and fragile, begins to feel more tangible, as though it is nurtured by the subtle kindness she witnesses in him. The emotional bridge that had seemed impossible to build in begins to take shape, laying the groundwork for the trust, understanding, and eventual affection that will define their evolving relationship. By the end of the story has shifted from tension and uncertainty to a softer, more reflective tone. Clara is beginning to recognize Jonathan as a man capable of tenderness, and Jonathan is slowly learning the impact of his quiet care. This chapter demonstrates that love and connection often emerge not through grand declarations, but through the understated gestures and moments that reveal the heart beneath the stoic exterior. The seeds of trust and warmth have been planted, and the stage is set for deeper bonding in the days to come. As the days pass, Clara and Jonathan begin to settle into the quiet rhythm of ranch life, and the small gestures of warmth that marked start to evolve into genuine connection. It is not sudden, nor is it dramatic. It is slow, subtle, and built upon the ordinary tasks of daily living. The snow-covered ranch, once overwhelming and isolating to Clara, becomes a stage for moments that gradually break down the barriers between them. The foundation of their relationship begins not with declarations of love, but with shared effort, mutual dependence, and the small victories of working together. Morning routines provide the first opportunities for bonding. Clara rises early to help feed the animals, water the horses, and prepare breakfast. Jonathan, already immersed in his own chores, occasionally offers guidance, pointing out the easiest way to lift a hay bale or secure the barn door. His instructions are practical and unembellished, yet there is a quiet patience in the way he demonstrates rather than criticizes. Clara begins to anticipate his movements, learning the rhythm of his work and the subtleties of ranch life. In turn, Jonathan notices her growing competence and determination, a quality he admires but rarely voices. These small interactions, repeated daily, build mutual respect and unspoken acknowledgement that each can rely on the other. Meals and evenings become another avenue for connection. Clara begins preparing simple, hearty dinners, experimenting with the limited ingredients the remote ranch offers. Jonathan observes with a reserved curiosity, occasionally offering a suggestion or remark that carries a hint of humor. In these moments, the walls of stoicism slowly crack, and laughter begins to punctuate the silence that once defined their interactions. The shared satisfaction of a meal, eaten by the fire while the wind howls outside, fosters a sense of domestic intimacy. They begin to recognize each other not just as companions in survival, but as partners in creating a home. The natural beauty and isolation of the ranch also offer opportunities for quieter, more reflective bonding. During afternoon walks through the snow-laden fields or while checking fences and livestock, Clara and Jonathan share stories of their pasts. Jonathan speaks of the hardships he endured to maintain the ranch, moments of loneliness and lessons learned in self-reliance. Clara opens up about her upbringing, the circumstances that led her to become a mail-order bride, and the hope she carries for a new life. In these exchanges, vulnerability is revealed carefully, almost cautiously, yet it allows them to understand one another beyond the roles they had initially assumed. Trust grows in these small disclosures, and a sense of companionship begins to blossom. Shared challenges further strengthen their bond. A stubborn horse refusing to cooperate, a sudden drop in temperature, or the need to repair a broken fence provides opportunities for collaboration. They learn to anticipate each other's actions, communicate without words, and problem solve as a team. These trials are not without frustration, but the victories, big and small, build confidence, interdependence, and mutual admiration. Clara realizes that Jonathan's strength lies not only in his physical capability, but in his unwavering reliability and quiet patience. Jonathan sees that Clara's courage, adaptability, and intelligence make her a partner in the truest sense, not merely a helpmate or a guest in his home. By the end of their relationship has shifted from tension and guarded observation to subtle, steady companionship. The bond formed through daily life is neither flamboyant nor immediate. It is rooted in shared experience, mutual respect, and recognition of each other's worth. Clara no longer feels like a newcomer struggling to belong, and Jonathan no longer regards her solely as a help or obligation. The ordinary, repetitive tasks of ranch life have become the threads that weave them closer together, laying the groundwork for emotional intimacy. Trust, warmth, and an emerging affection begin to take hold, preparing the way for deeper revelations of heart and emotion in the chapters to come. As Clara settles into her new life on the ranch, her connection with Jonathan deepens, yet her past and the world she left behind remain close at hand. One crisp morning, as she is tending to the animals, she receives a letter from her family. The envelope is familiar, worn from travel, yet the contents carry an unexpected weight. Her family expresses concern for her well-being, questioning her choice to become a mail-order bride and warning of the loneliness and hardships that await her. The letter, though filled with love and care, triggers a whirlwind of emotions, guilt, doubt, and anxiety. Clara is torn between the world she left and the life she is trying to build, and for the first time, the fragility of her hope feels exposed. Sitting by the fire, she reads and rereads the letter, her hands trembling slightly. The words bring a wave of nostalgia and longing, memories of home, family gatherings, and the sense of security she once took for granted. Yet, intertwined with that longing is a sense of responsibility. She chose this path, hoping for a new beginning, and now she must reconcile the warnings and doubts of her loved ones with the reality of her growing life on the ranch. The letter acts as both a tether to her past and a mirror reflecting her inner conflict. How much of her heart belongs to the life she left, and how much can she invest in the life she is building with Jonathan? Jonathan notices Clara's unusual quietness that day, but initially misinterprets it. He assumes she is tired from chores or discouraged by the relentless winter work. His reserved nature makes it difficult for him to probe gently, and when he does ask, his questions are straightforward and practical rather than empathetic. Clara struggles to articulate her feelings without sounding critical or ungrateful, and the resulting conversation leads to a brief misunderstanding. Jonathan senses distance but cannot fully grasp the emotional weight of the letter or the conflict Clara feels. For Clara, the silence and stoicism she once admired in Jonathan now feel like emotional distance, and frustration simmers beneath her polite exterior. Despite the initial tension, the letter becomes a catalyst for growth. Clara reflects on how far she has come from the anxious girl arriving at the train station to a capable, resilient woman managing the challenges of ranch life. She realizes that her family's concern, though heartfelt, cannot dictate her life. She must navigate her own path, balancing her roots with the possibilities of a new beginning. This internal reflection strengthens her resolve, reminding her why she chose this uncertain journey and why she cannot allow fear or guilt to undermine her hope. For Jonathan, the episode sparks quiet reflection as well. Observing Clara's distress and witnessing her determination to move past it, he begins to understand the depth of her character, the courage, perseverance, and emotional complexity she brings to the ranch. Although he struggles to express it, the incident helps him recognize that his own stoicism may have inadvertently created barriers between them. It marks a subtle turning point, encouraging him to be more attentive, patient, and emotionally present in ways he had not considered before. By the end, the letter from home has served multiple purposes. It introduces external conflict, reminding Clara and Jonathan that the past and outside expectations can challenge even the most carefully nurtured connections. It tests their growing bond, revealing vulnerabilities, misunderstandings, and the need for empathy. Most importantly, it strengthens their emotional development. Clara becomes more self-reliant and confident in her choices, and Jonathan begins to see the importance of emotional awareness and subtle communication. Together, these lessons deepen the foundation of trust and intimacy, preparing them for shared challenges and the moments of warmth and love that lie ahead. Winter in the remote town has always been harsh, but one particular day, the weather takes a dangerous turn. A sudden snowstorm descends upon the ranch with little warning, bringing relentless wind, thick drifts, and a biting cold that penetrates even the thickest coats. Clara and Jonathan, accustomed to the demands of ranch life, initially try to maintain their daily routines, feeding the livestock and securing the property. Yet it quickly becomes clear that this storm is unlike anything they have faced before. Visibility drops to mere feet, paths become impassable, and the animals grow restless and agitated. The isolation of the ranch, once a source of quiet beauty, now becomes a threatening element. The crisis begins subtly, with Clara noticing the uneven stamping of the horses and the anxious calls of the cows. She tries to manage the animals herself, but soon realizes that the storm is stronger than her alone. Jonathan steps in, and for the first time, their work must be entirely coordinated. There is no room for hesitation or miscommunication. They must rely on one another completely, combining their strengths, skill, and quick thinking to prevent disaster. The tension is immediate. The stakes are high, and failure could mean injury or loss of livestock. Every movement is deliberate, every instruction precise, and every glance carries unspoken urgency. During the storm, the emotional barriers they have built slowly dissolve. Clara feels Jonathan's concern and attentiveness in a tangible way. He adjusts her gloves, steadies her when she slips on the ice, and communicates with a calm authority that instills confidence. She, in turn, matches his determination, stepping forward to help guide the animals and brace against the wind. This shared struggle fosters a profound sense of partnership. For the first time, their relationship is not about polite gestures or tentative companionship. It is about survival and trust in the rawest form. Each relies entirely on the other's competence, and in doing so, they discover new dimensions of courage and resilience within themselves and each other. The night stretches long, and exhaustion threatens to overtake them both. Hands are raw, bodies ache, and the cold is unrelenting. Yet, amid the chaos, moments of quiet connection emerge. A brief glance exchanged while moving a stubborn cow, a hand offered to steady the other across a slick patch of ice. A shared breath of relief after securing the barn doors. These small interactions carry the weight of trust, intimacy, and mutual respect. Neither speaks of feelings in words, but the emotional current between them is undeniable. They are, in that moment, fully attuned to one another in a way that words cannot capture. The storm finally begins to subside as the night deepens, leaving the ranch blanketed in pristine snow. The crisis, while exhausting, has forged a new level of understanding between Clara and Jonathan. They have faced danger together, relied on one another for safety, and emerged with a strengthened bond. The physical and emotional trials of the storm reveal the depth of their connection. Clara sees Jonathan as more than a reserved, stoic rancher. He is a protector, a partner, and someone whose presence can be trusted implicitly. Jonathan, in turn, recognizes Clara's courage, adaptability, and unflinching spirit, qualities that deepen his admiration and care for her. By the end of, the snowstorm has served as both a literal and symbolic crucible. It tests their strength, exposes vulnerabilities, and accelerates the emotional intimacy that had been building gradually over weeks. The shared experience transforms their relationship from tentative companionship to a partnership forged in adversity. In surviving the storm together, Clara and Jonathan have proven to themselves and each other that they can face challenges as a united front, laying the foundation for the emotional revelations, warmth, and love that will unfold in the coming chapters. The ranch, after surviving the brutal snowstorm, is calm and serene, blanketed in fresh, glistening snow that reflects the pale light of the setting sun. It is Christmas Eve, a night that carries an air of anticipation, warmth, and quiet reflection. Inside the modest ranch house, the hearth crackles softly, casting dancing shadows on the wooden walls. Clara moves about, arranging simple decorations, preparing a small meal, and humming softly, a sound that catches Jonathan's attention. There is something about this night, the combination of snow, firelight, and shared survival, that seems to soften even his stoic nature. As Clara places a handmade ornament on the tiny Christmas tree in the corner, Jonathan watches silently from a distance. He notices her eyes lighting up with the glow of candlelight, the gentle grace in her movements, and the quiet joy she derives from these small tasks. For the first time, he is struck not by her resilience alone, but by the warmth and light she brings into the house, into his life. Until now, he has thought of her primarily as a companion, someone capable and courageous. Yet only on this night does he allow himself to see her as something more, a blessing, a presence that fills the cold corners of the ranch with life and hope. Clara senses a shift as well. She catches Jonathan watching her, and in his gaze she perceives admiration, gratitude, and something tender and new. It is not the overt affection of romance, but a quiet acknowledgement of her worth and presence, a recognition that she is valued not merely for her work or companionship, but for who she is. The unspoken understanding passes between them like a gentle current. After weeks of hardship, shared labor, and moments of vulnerability, they have arrived at a point of mutual recognition and emotional clarity. The moment builds slowly. Jonathan steps closer, carrying a small bundle of firewood, and without a word, he adds it to the hearth. Clara smiles, a faint blush rising to her cheeks, and instinctively places a hand near the fire, both for warmth and as a subtle invitation for connection. They move together to prepare the meal, exchanging words that are no longer just practical instructions but soft remarks filled with light humor and gentle teasing. Each word, each glance, is imbued with meaning, a silent acknowledgement of the bond that has developed between them. As the evening progresses, the snow outside thickens the quiet, isolating them in the intimate glow of the ranch house. They sit together near the fire, sharing a simple meal and reflecting on the day, the storm, and the past weeks. Jonathan finally speaks words he has long withheld, telling Clara that he appreciates her courage, her perseverance, and her presence. He admits that she has become more than just a companion. She is a blessing in his life, someone whose arrival has changed the quiet rhythm of the ranch into something fuller, warmer, and infinitely more meaningful. Clara, moved by the sincerity in his voice and the softness in his eyes, responds with her own admission of hope and appreciation. She shares that, despite the challenges, she feels a sense of belonging she never expected to find, and that Jonathan's quiet care has made her feel valued, seen, and respected. This exchange does not require grand gestures. It is subtle, tender, and genuine, a culmination of shared experience, trust, and the gradual unfolding of emotional intimacy. The Christmas Eve revelation serves as both a turning point and an emotional climax in their relationship. It marks the first moment when both characters fully acknowledge the depth of their feelings for one another. The hardships they endured, the lessons learned, and the quiet acts of care coalesce into a shared understanding. They have found not only companionship, but the beginnings of love built on mutual respect, trust, and admiration. By the end of the warmth of the hearth, the stillness of the snow outside, and the glow of shared recognition create a sense of peace and fulfillment. Clara and Jonathan no longer merely coexist. They see each other as partners in life and heart, ready to embrace the promise of a future together. The story's emotional journey has reached a pivotal moment, setting the stage for confessions, commitments, and the new beginning that awaits in the coming chapters. Following the tender realization on Christmas Eve, Clara and Jonathan find themselves in a quiet, reflective state, both aware of the subtle but undeniable shift in their relationship. The fire crackles in the hearth, the snow glistens outside, and the ranch feels cocooned in a serene winter hush. This peaceful setting allows them to finally speak words that have been building silently between them, words that acknowledge the depth of their feelings and the bond forged through shared struggle and care. The confession begins naturally, almost hesitantly. Clara, seated near the fire, watches the flames dance and feels the warmth of Jonathan's presence beside her. Her thoughts are a mixture of nervous anticipation and relief. She has long admired his strength, quiet care, and steady companionship. But now she recognizes that her feelings have grown beyond gratitude or admiration. They have blossomed into affection, a gentle love born from respect and shared experience. She takes a deep breath and begins to speak, recounting the moments that have made her feel seen, valued, and safe, how his small acts of care, his unwavering patience, and the quiet attention he has given her have transformed her fear and uncertainty into hope and belonging. Jonathan listens intently, his usual reserve giving way to vulnerability. He notices the way Clara's eyes shimmer with honesty and sincerity, and it compels him to confront emotions he has long suppressed. For years, he has relied on stoicism and silence to navigate life on the ranch, hiding feelings behind practicality and self-reliance. But Clara's courage, warmth, and persistence have softened his defenses. He realizes that her presence is not merely a comfort or a companion in his daily life, it is a source of joy, inspiration, and emotional fulfillment. Encouraged by her openness, he begins to articulate his own feelings, admitting that he has come to value her for who she is, not just for her role on the ranch. The dialogue between them is intimate and unhurried. Neither seeks grand gestures or declarations. Instead, their words are filled with honesty, humility, and reverence for the journey that has brought them here. Jonathan confesses how her perseverance during the harsh winter and her unwavering spirit have moved him, how her laughter and simple gestures have brightened his home, and how her presence has transformed the loneliness of the ranch into something richer and more meaningful. Clara, in turn, expresses her gratitude for his patience, his quiet guidance, and the sense of security he has provided. She acknowledges that her initial fear and uncertainty have given way to trust, admiration, and love. This confession is more than words. It is an emotional exchange that solidifies their bond. The tension, misunderstanding, and cautious interactions of the past weeks are replaced by clarity, acceptance, and mutual understanding. Both characters recognize that love, in its truest form, is not instantaneous or dramatic, but built slowly through shared hardship, respect, and care. Their hearts align in a quiet, steadfast commitment, signaling the beginning of a partnership that balances emotional intimacy with practical support. By the end of the scene, the atmosphere of the ranch mirrors the emotional harmony within the characters. The fire continues to glow, casting warmth and light across the room, while outside, the snow sparkles under the moonlight, symbolizing purity, renewal, and hope. Clara and Jonathan sit close, not merely as companions or partners in survival, but as equals who have earned one another as trust and love. The confession of hearts transforms their relationship from potential to reality, turning mutual admiration and unspoken affection into a conscious choice to embrace each other fully in both heart and life. It sets the stage for the story's conclusion, a new beginning built on shared experiences, love, and the promise of a life together. It is the emotional apex where both characters fully recognize and embrace the bond that has grown through trials, small acts of kindness, and moments of vulnerability, a love that is resilient, tender, and true. With the confessions of heart behind them, Clara and Jonathan step into the next chapter of their lives with a newfound sense of partnership, trust, and love. The snow outside the ranch is still, blanketing the land in a pristine white glow, symbolizing a fresh start. Inside, the warmth of the hearth, the subtle glow of candlelight, and the simple decorations they have nurtured together create an atmosphere of comfort and intimacy. The hardships of the past, the isolation, the storm, the doubts, and misunderstandings now feel like stepping stones leading them to this moment of emotional clarity and mutual recognition. The morning of Christmas Day begins with a quiet routine, but there is a sense of celebration in the air. Clara wakes early, inspired to prepare a simple breakfast, and Jonathan joins her in the kitchen. Their interactions are filled with ease, a contrast to the awkwardness and tension of the early days. The small gestures, the passing of a pan, the sharing of hot coffee, the exchanged smiles reflect the depth of their connection. They no longer need words to communicate affection. It is expressed in their actions, their attentiveness, and the comfort they take in each other's presence. Outside, the ranch is transformed by the snow, sparkling under the morning sun. The once intimidating expanse now feels welcoming and full of possibility. Clara steps out for a moment, feeling the crisp air on her cheeks, and looks out over the fields and animals, sensing a sense of ownership, belonging, and contribution. Jonathan joins her, placing a warm hand over hers in a gesture that is both protective and tender. It is a simple act, yet it carries the weight of their journey, the challenges they have faced, the trust they have built, and the love they have discovered. In this quiet connection, they both understand that they are no longer two individuals navigating life alone, but partners who will face the future together. Throughout the day, they tend to the ranch with a renewed sense of purpose and joy. Tasks that once seemed daunting now feel collaborative, infused with humor, encouragement, and shared accomplishment. Jonathan watches Clara handle the animals with confidence and care, feeling pride and admiration. Clara observes Jonathan's quiet competence and thoughtful attention, feeling a sense of security and affection that goes beyond words. The rhythm of daily life, once a source of tension, is now a medium through which their partnership thrives. As evening approaches, the couple shares a moment of reflection by the hearth. They talk of their journey from Clara's arrival at the train station, through the challenges and misunderstandings, to the storm that tested their reliance on each other, and finally to the confession of their hearts. Each story is told with gratitude, humor, and tenderness, reinforcing the emotional bond that has been carefully nurtured over time. There is a sense of completeness in these reflections. The hardships, the moments of doubt, and the quiet gestures of care have all converged to create a resilient foundation for their life together. The story concludes with a symbolic gesture. Clara and Jonathan step outside to admire the snow-covered ranch under a starry sky. The world feels expansive yet safe, full of possibilities. They stand together, hand in hand, silently acknowledging that they have found not only love but a shared life built on respect, trust, and mutual support. The harshness of the past has been transformed into warmth, hope, and stability. A new beginning is both literal and metaphorical. It marks the start of a life where Clara and Jonathan are equals, partners, and companions in both labor and love. It signals the fulfillment of Clara's hope, the blossoming of Jonathan's emotional openness, and the promise of a future grounded in resilience, tenderness, and shared dreams. The story ends on a note of optimism, emphasizing that love, once earned through trust and understanding, is enduring, transformative, and capable of turning a life of uncertainty into one filled with purpose, joy, and heartfelt connection.